Do you understand? The BRICS is now what the United States was, but is no more. Now, if you're looking to where the wealth is, you go east, not west. If you're a poor third world country, as we used to call them, and you need money for a build railroad, or you need to find places to sell your exports, you direct your diplomats first to go to Beijing, because that's where it's at. China is winning. We are losing. Shh. Don't tell anyone. Because you live in a country which is pretending to itself that none of this is going on. It's either never discussed, or we turn it around and we say, the Chinese are becoming aggressive in the world.
What's up, YouTube family? Welcome back to my space. This is Evans Rayola. Guys, thank you so much for tuning to watch this video. So guys, on today's video, we'll talk about capitalism. And to speak to us today is Richard Wolff. Richard Wolff, who is an economist, who's very passionate about anti-capitalism. And in today's video, he speaks about Donald Trump and his presidency. In his recent lecture titled Global Capitalism, What Trump 2.0 Means, economist Richard Wolff delves into the implications of a potential second term for former President Donald Trump. Wolff emphasizes that the United States is experiencing a decline in its global economic dominance, a trend that has been ongoing for decades. He points out that while the US and its traditional allies in the G7 now account to 26-27% of the world's output, emerging economies represented by groups like the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa are gaining prominence. This shift challenges the post-World War II economic order, where the US held unparalleled influence. So guys, I wanted to watch this video, of Richard Wolff explaining how the different, or rather the declining of the US under the leadership of Donald Trump because of the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Let's watch this. Once the video is done, we'll get back and do a critical analysis about the same.
This country is, as Dr. Leon, I keep wanting to call him Wilmer because we've gotten to be friends, but as he pointed out, we live in a time of decline. And then when an empire declines, which is something we haven't gone through because empires don't decline very often. So, but let me tell you from the history books, a little bit we can tell, it's not fun to be in a declining empire. Much more fun when the empire is going up, which was the last century or a century and a half of this country, the ride up. We are now on the ride down. We haven't been prepared because we have leaders who cannot say a word about that. I want to just drive that home because the split in this country is really about that. So let me start with the split in the obvious way. This Monday, we are having a national celebration of two key events. One that you hear about every day, all day, the inauguration of a new president. It's also the anniversary of the assassination of Martin Luther King. Same day. Wow, how different. One celebration from the other. Who's celebrating what? You might say, and you wouldn't be far wrong, that those celebrating Mr. Trump are probably also celebrating the assassination of Mr. King. And those that are mourning one are likely also mourning the other one of those two events. But it's a country split between those on the one side of that and those on the other. And that split is everywhere now. And if you haven't noticed it yet, you will, because it's going to impact your life in all kinds of ways. So one of them to start, is a little bit about what a declining empire means, just to give you the context. The United States lost the war in Vietnam. When I say that in my classes, my students look at me. They've never heard such a thought. America, as they know from the comic books they read as children, only wins wars. It doesn't lose wars, but we lost. The war was fought against the Communist Party of North Vietnam, which has been running that country since the United States was driven out in 1975. Go check all of this. You will find I'm not making it up. After we lost the war in Vietnam, we went and had a big war in Afghanistan, which we also lost. That war was against the Taliban, which now runs that country, which is a good sign that you lost. We lost the war in Iraq. We are in the process of losing the war in Ukraine. But the split in the country is, if I were in certain audiences, I wouldn't dare say what I just said, because they couldn't hear it. They could not hear it. And I wouldn't be able to get anything else across, so I couldn't start that way. I'm a teacher. I'm not going to try to lose my audience before I begin. But it is the reality. Let me give you a couple of more, just bits of getting what decline means. Last week, something happened on the part of a country called Indonesia. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's a remarkable country in Asia, made up of 18,000 islands in the Pacific. It's a huge country. The population of Indonesia is 280 million people. Makes it one of the largest countries in the world. Let me remind you, the population of the United States is 330 million. 280 isn't that far less than 330. It's an enormous thing. What they did, they joined the BRICS. They joined a full partner of the BRICS. BRICS, by the way, means it's the first letters of the countries Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. A dozen years ago, they began to form an alliance of what came to be called the Global South, to be independent, relatively, from the domination of the United States. And the core economy there, the biggest one, the most powerful, is, I'm sorry to tell you this, I know it'll come as an upset, the People's Republic of China. Remember, I'm the messenger. I have no responsibility for this at all. China and the BRICS. Indonesia joined them. Together now, the BRICS, built around China, have as the population of the countries that are part of the BRICS, about 22 countries now altogether. They have about 55 to 60% of the population of the world are members. What is the percentage of the world's population of the United States? 4.5%. You understand? We are 4.5%. They are 50 to 60%. In the words of, Mickey Mouse, uh-oh. Those odds are not so good, no matter how you cut it. And as a group, let me tell you how you cut it. We in economics have this little game. We ask, what is the total output in goods and services in a year of a country? Gives us a kind of rough idea of how big a country it is, how important its footprint is in the world. Okay, so if you take the BRICS, together now, they are about 35%, maybe a bit more, total output of the world. If you add up each of those countries' total output in a year, and you add them up, they account for 36%, more or less, of the world's output. Now let's compare that to the United States and its major allies. Those are called the G7, the group of seven. The United States, Japan, Canada, Britain, France, Italy, and Spain. And Britain, excuse me. Okay, that used to be the dominant player of the world. That used to be what world trade meant, what they did. Together they, that's all of them, now account for about 28% of the world's output. Do you understand? The BRICS is now what the United States was, but is no more. Now, if you're looking to where the wealth is, you go east, not west. If you're a poor third world country, as we used to call them, and you need money for a build railroad, or you need to find places to sell your exports, you direct your diplomats first to go to Beijing, because that's where it's at. If you can't get a good deal there, well, you might go to London or Washington. But whatever you are doing, you're going to play them against each other. You're going to say to the Americans, oh, that's the best you offer? Let's go the other place, see what they offer. You want to know why most of the railroads being built in Africa today are being built by the Chinese? There's your answer. They got a better deal. Everything is changing because of this, except here, where the make-believe is the way this country is dealing with this. Denial. We ought to ask Dr. Fra to help us with the understanding psychologically. We all know it from our personal lives, right? When we've lost a friend or a lover, and we had to wait until all our friends told us what we couldn't face ourselves. Well, we are the friends in this country who are being unable to vent. That's why what Indonesia did last week is something I'm not going to ask how many of you noticed it, because nobody will raise their hand. How could you? Make-believe made sure that was not on the newspaper's front page, or in most newspapers on any page, ever. How many of you know that the Chinese are now the fast-growing dominant economy in the world? We're not. We haven't been for a while. Every major high-tech firm in this country has an analog. Has an analog in China. When we heard earlier that there was an offer by China and by Russia to work with the United States earlier, which the United States turned down, that's part of denial. They didn't just turn it down then, they turned it down now. One more example, and then I'll stop and tell you what this all means. 15 years ago, every automobile company on this planet went to work trying to develop what they understood was the next wave in that business, which was putting aside the gasoline-powered car and substituting an electric-operated car or truck. By the way, not a rational response, because it's terribly wasteful to have that vehicle, which those of you who have it notice, sits on the street or in the garage most of its life. That's kind of, let's use a fundamental word, stupid. It's stupid. It's a waste of resources. That car could serve 20 people each day if it were managed properly. What do I mean managed properly? Well, like a car rental business, that's how they would manage that. Or those bicycles we can now just take off the rack and put back on. That's a rational way. If you want to avoid killing people, which private cars do, if you want to avoid air pollution, cars are the major cause of it, and on and on. Rational would be to go from the private car to a mass transit efficient system. A beautiful train every 5 minutes, a beautiful bus, even more beautiful, every 3 minutes, everywhere. That's it. Infinitely cheaper, much more efficient. And none of you have to worry about it, because wherever it's parked, in the central lots, which we call car rental centers, There would be paid mechanics who make sure they're in proper condition. So the car would be in better shape, better cared for. The whole thing is nuts. And who is the person who invented this crazy bad solution to the fuel burning car? That genius who did this terrible thing? Elon Musk. That's what he did. He found the way that automobile companies could make a profit by taking us out of gas cars into electric cars. So 15 years ago, all the car companies said, hooray, here's how we hold on to our profits by making these private cars for everybody. And they all went to work to compete. And there was a winner. As of 3 years ago, one company figured out how to make the best quality electric cars and trucks at the lowest price, which is what competition is supposed to result. And I'm sure you all know the name of this company. It's the BYD Corporation. Let me do that again. B as in boy, Y as in yellow, D as in dog, BYD. Now, your faces give you away. You never heard of this place or this thing. What is it? Well, what did I just tell you? They won the competition for the entire new wave of cars and trucks moving across this planet every day by the millions. And you never heard of them. Why? Because they move everywhere except here. If you go to Europe right now, you'll see them all over the roads. BYD, and by the way, there's several Chinese car companies. They're not the only one. They're just the ones who did it best. Why don't you see them? Because we have a tariff started by Mr. Trump, raised by Mr. Biden. The tariff on the Chinese electric vehicles is 100%. So let me explain quickly what that means. The Chinese produce this wonderful thing, this electric vehicle, and let's take a simple number. $30,000 is what they cost for the car. You're an American. You need, therefore, to come up with $30,000 if, for example, you're a company that uses electric trucks to do part of your business. It's an input. You'd have to come up with $30,000 to get the truck. And then you'd have to pay 100%. Another $30,000 will go into Uncle Sam, who put the tariff. Tariff is just a word for a tax. It's a word for a tax on an imported good or service, something that produced out of the country but brought in here for sale. That's what an import is, and tariff is the name of the tax you put on imports. We have been putting taxes on imports as a nation from the beginning. Although throughout the history, there's nothing new about it. But it's 100%, which means an American would have to buy that truck by giving China 30 grand for the truck, and Uncle Sam another 30 grand, and so with 60 grand, you get the truck. But of course, no one does that. Why? Because Ford and General Motors and Tesla will sell you an electric car or truck for a mere 40 grand or 50 grand or something like that. So who's helped by this? Ford and General Motors, they wouldn't be able to sell their crappy cars otherwise. None of us buy a $40,000 or $50,000 electric car if we're going to do that, and give BYD $30,000 for a better car rather than $40,000 or $50,000 to General Motors, however patriotic we might feel. And you know who knows it? Ford and General Motors. So they went to the president and they said, put that tariff there. It'll protect us. Of course, they didn't say our profits, which is the truth. It'll protect jobs. Whenever you hear a capitalist tell you about what they're doing to protect jobs, hold on to your wallet. Someone's reaching. Why is it false? Because this is a terrible act for most American producers. Think of yourself as a maker of shirts or of chairs or of software programs. You would like to buy the trucks you need to bring in your inputs, to sell and distribute your outputs. You're going to have to buy electric trucks. You'd like to buy the best one at the lowest price. Of course. You're competing with enterprises in France and in Germany and in Brazil and in Nigeria and fill in the blank. They're all buying BYD cars at 30 grand. You have to pay 40 or 50 to General Motors. You know what that means? They're going to defeat you economically. You're going to be loser. And when you lose, you're going to lay off your workers because you can't compete with the companies that can buy the biggest, the best, and the cheapest electric vehicle. Now multiply this by dozens of other commodities. China is winning. We are losing. Shh. Don't tell anyone. Because you live in a country which is pretending to itself that none of this is going on. It's either never discussed or we turn it around and we say, the Chinese are becoming aggressive in the world. Huh? They're doing what exactly we did. You know how the United States became a big, powerful country? By doing to Europe what the Chinese are doing to us. It's not new. It's not different. The only question is, why would it be surprising? What a strange behavior is going on here. Now, where is this taking us? And I have a few things, and that's all I really want to tell you. Mr. Trump is a problem. You've probably already noticed that. And one of the ways he's a problem is that he has come this far as a politician. He had a different life before. It's known as a playboy. So he went from a New York playboy to a national politician, maybe even an international politician. And he did it in one basic way. He understood, maybe it's not clear, he understood that America was in such trouble that the mass of people here were remarkably alienated from the conventional Republican and Democratic parties. They didn't feel those parties were doing much for them, which is true. That those parties weren't protecting them from a decline they couldn't quite pinpoint, but they felt, particularly over the last 30 years. Their budgets were squeezed. You might have noticed that 40 years ago, the level of household debt in this country was small. Nowadays, everybody is loaded with debt. I can add, if you're interested, that corporate debt is at a higher level than it's ever been in our country, and government debt. In other words, we are a country in debt on a scale we didn't imagine 10 years ago, let alone think we would have now. There's a name for companies that have been for several years so deeply in debt that they don't make enough profit, ready, to service their debt. That is, to pay the interest and the portion they have to repay. Now, we have a special name in economics for them. I kid you not, I didn't make this up. Zombie corporations, because they're dead. They're economically defunct. You know how they manage to survive when their profits aren't enough to cover their debts? They take on more debt to pay the debt they couldn't otherwise cover. Uh-oh, that makes them more zombie-ish next year than they were this year, which is what's happening.
Family, this speech by economist Richard Wolff is just one of the most insightful speeches that you'll hear in 2025. You know, he talks about the BRICS and the G7, talks about how the world is taking a new shape, how the US is slowly falling down. You know, the US has been a dominant force over the years. And according to economist Richard Wolff, he explains how this is just going down and down each and every day, you know, because the world is actually getting, you know, to have new powers. The dominance of the US is slowly going down and down. And he says under the leadership of Donald Trump, in this new administration, in his second term, will be crazy for him. And Richard Wolff speaks about a lot of things. He says that this country is in a time of decline, And he points out when Trump was being inaugurated, he says that weirdly, or rather, I don't know, during the same day, it marked the anniversary of Martin Luther King, and on the same day Trump was being inaugurated. He proceeds to say that there is something, about this day. That's why it's aligning, with the day of the legend, Martin Luther King, who was trying to fight for the rights of black people. He proceeds to say that US is becoming a declining empire. Many a times empires do not decline, but right now the US is having the declining trajectory. He says that recently Indonesia has joined the BRICS. The countries who are coming along to say that, it's been a long time US has been ruling us. US will no longer be a dominant, against us. But the shocking thing is the population of Indonesia and the size of Indonesia. Indonesia joined the BRICS, a country with a population of 280 million people. 280 million people is a lot of people, considering the US alone has about 330 million people, and Indonesia in itself has 280 million people. That causes it causes shockwaves, to the president of the US right now, Donald Trump, considering Indonesia just joined the BRICS like 2 weeks ago, And if you look at other countries who are already in the BRICS, like Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, also have large numbers. And if you put them cumulatively, all these countries that are against the power, the dominance of the US, that would mean that the BRICS shall have won this fight. The goal of the BRICS was to be independent from the domination of the United States. About 22 countries in the BRICS have a population of about 55 to 60% of the population of the world. Imagine that. More than half of the population of the member countries in the BRICS form about 55 to 60% of the total population of the earth. That should be a serious threat. The US, on the other hand, is at 4.5%. Look at the difference, man. You're fighting people who are actually 50 plus in terms of percentage, as compared to the total population of human beings in the face of the earth today. The G7, which is the United States, Japan, Canada, Britain, France, Italy, and Spain, that used to be dominant power of the world, now account to 28% of the world's output. Only 28% of the world's output. Just imagine the shockwaves right now in America. Just imagine how this will tremendously affect the US, considering it has always been dominant. People have always been depending on the US. Look at now in the leadership of Trump, he said that USAID, is being terminated, and all these bodies that have been supporting other countries in the world. These could be economical, in a way or the other. The BRICS is now what the United States was, and it's no more. China is winning, America is losing, because we live in a country which is pretending to itself that none of this is going on. Look at the growth in China. Look at most countries in the world that are trying to develop or are developing. Let me call them third world countries. If you look at their projects, it could be roads, it could be just good infrastructures. You'll find out that Chinese people are getting these deals. You know, they're offering loans to these countries. If you look at industries in the US, most of these things come from China indirectly, you know, and people do not know about that because China has come up with a way that they make things very affordable and they beat you in the market. You know, once something is affordable, they'll always beat you in the market. Pricing is very, very essential when it comes to support, when it comes to businesses. Mr. Trump is a problem. These are the words of Richard Wolff. Sorry, yeah. These are the words of Richard Wolff. Mr. Trump is a problem. He has come this far as a politician. He understood that America had much trouble, that the mass of people here were remarkably alienated from the conventional Republican and Democratic parties. Regarding Trump's second tenure, Wolff expresses concern that this administration may not address these systemic issues. Instead, he fears that policies might favor the wealthy and fail to confront the underlying economic challenges. Wolff underscores the importance of recognizing and addressing these trends to negative the nation's future effectively. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Kindly let me know in the comment section what you think about this teaching by Richard Wolff. You know, Richard Wolff is one economist who speaks about issues that people rarely speak about. According to me, this should be the best speech I've had in 2025 of Richard Wolff trying to explain why he thinks America is slowly falling down, why he thinks the BRICS is taking over. You know, guys, let me know in the comment section if you agree with the teachings of Richard Wolff in this specific topic on global capitalism. You know, and guys, like this video so that it can be recommended to other YouTube users. And finally, but not least, I just want to make it clear to you all that I do not take your support for granted. Kindly subscribe to the channel so that we may be able to grow and continue sharing amazing topics. Thank you and see you all in my next episode. Goodbye for now.